Giza Plateau, Egypt. Present day, high noon. You, standing at the foot of the Khafre pyramid. Hey there, fellow explorer. The desert sun sizzles overhead, but tonight, let's slip into a dust-shrouded secret. A hidden city just beneath your feet that waits for discovery like a half-remembered dream. What if everything you know about ancient Egypt, the pyramids, burial chambers, lost treasures, was just the tip of a much deeper mystery? There's a twist hidden down there in the shadows, one that even the strictest experts have tried to wave away. Stick around if you find yourself lost in fascination or a little sleepy curiosity. Maybe tap that like and subscribe button. Only if you truly love unwrapping history's enigmas, of course. And before we dive in, why not let me know where in the world you're watching this and what time it is? Tonight, this is more than a story. It's a global midnight gathering beneath the gaze of the pyramids. Now, go ahead, dim the lights, sink back into soft pillows, and get ready. We're about to wander into the belly of Egypt's greatest riddle. It starts with sweat stinging your brow. The sand crunches under your boots as you trek across the wind-blown plain toward a small clutch of gear, nearly swallowed by dune and time. Nearby, the Khafre pyramid rises in shades of tan and ochre, its ancient stones blistered by sun, each block stacked some 4,000 years ago. Your shadow stretches along the gritty ground, mingling with a half-circle of researchers, their faces etched with hope and doubt. Even after all these centuries, there's a hush around the pyramid. Not reverence exactly, more like anticipation. You sense it in the low, nervous jokes your team tosses out as they brush dust from the sensors. Every step closer, you feel the weight of unspoken expectations. Today is not just another scan. Yesterday's rumors have spiraled. Something was picked up on the radar, a hint of voids or passages where there shouldn't be any. You steady your breathing. The present day feels as thin as papyrus here, as if history is about to reach up and tap you on the shoulder. Your closest teammate, Adam, fiddles with a control pad, frowning in the harsh light. The rest of the team crowds a small screen propped against a tripod. No one speaks above a whisper, but you catch the words anomaly, network, city. You lean in, joining the cluster, and watch a digital map stretch across the surface, rendered in bright, ghostly blue. On it, lines snake beneath the pyramid's northern flank, branching out below what appears to be solid limestone. A ripple of skepticism passes through the group. Adam's voice cuts through, louder now, as he tries to keep things grounded. Remember, most of these anomalies turn out to be natural. Caves, fault lines. Don't get ahead of yourselves. He says this more to steady himself than to convince you. It's a good point. In the past, countless odd blips and fuzzy patches on radar have been explained away with geology and wishful thinking. Experts remind everyone of the dangers of reading too much into patterns that might be little more than random noise in the rock. The sands of Giza have always been a magnet for wild claims, and for every wandering dreamer, there has always been a stern-faced geologist ready to call the party off. You rub a line of sweat off your cheek and promise yourself not to let your heart race ahead of the data. Still, something feels different today. The console chirps, a bright electronic tone that jars your senses like a bell echoing through a crypt. The lines deepen, the scan sharpens. A vast and deliberate pattern emerges beneath the Khafre pyramid. Layered chambers, long connecting passageways, cross-hatched like the grid of a modern metropolis. The complexity hits you all at once, and for a second, time warps. The desert, the burial ground, the present day, all folding into a single breath. Adam lets out a low whistle. "There it is," he mutters. "That's not natural strata. Not by a mile." Your eyes track the unmistakable geometric order. Galleries, right-angled passages, nodes that could pass for squares or courtyards. Scaled up, it would rival the footprint of any medieval city, all perfectly aligned beneath the weathered stones above. The system seems designed, not random. This is the moment everything changes. Mainstream critics will tell you otherwise, of course. Already you hear echoes of their doubts. It's just fractured limestone. It's wishful thinking. Maybe oil pockets. Maybe ancient underground rivers. That is what they have said about every so-called find in this place, until one is finally proven. Now, though, the new radar data forces a decision. What you're seeing can no longer be dismissed as a mirage or a technical error. For decades, theories about extensive Egyptian water tunnels have drifted just at the edge of acceptability. After all, ancient Egyptians excelled in managing water. They built canals, dams, even underground cisterns beneath temples. But this is different. The scale dwarfs anything seen before. A short silence lays heavy over the team as you review the cross-sections. They reveal multi-chambered rooms stacked beneath the surface, as if the ground itself has been quietly hiding a parallel universe. One of the younger researchers, Noor, leans over your shoulder, murmuring in half disbelief, "If these are rooms, why so deep? What could they possibly need so far down? What could they possibly need so far down?" The chill of subterranean air seems to reach you already, even here, sweat drying on your skin. Your flashlight beams into nothing, but you almost feel breath on the back of your neck, echoes moving just below where you stand. You catch yourself scanning the nearby cemetery for any indication, any sign that the stone markers scattered on the sand above might be hints to entrances or clues left by those who came before. The pattern repeats. Right angles, tessellations, doesn't fit what you'd expect from nature. Adam starts listing technical checks. Ground-penetrating radar bounce is sharp, consistent across sweeps. Some voids are 15 meters beneath the plateau. Nothing we'd flag is a simple cave. Noor adds, and there are connections, long, curved corridors. You wouldn't get that from groundwater erosion. A researcher radios in from the Western Cemetery, voice crackling, picking up the same grid. It lines up with your section. Your breath comes a little faster now. You realize you're looking not at random geology, but at engineering on a scale that dwarfs any single tomb or burial chamber. If the scans are right, the pyramids themselves may be only the first clue, a beacon to something much larger. It's like using Google Maps for an ancient metropolis, but with every click zooming deeper and deeper beneath the earth. That is when the twist drops. This isn't just theory or rumor. The radar scan has been interpreted by some as suggesting a vast underground network beneath Khafre. Maybe the pyramid isn't simply a royal tomb, but a marker above a hidden world. A city carefully engineered, its existence erased by time and sand. For a moment, no one quite knows what to do. The chatter dies down, replaced by the distant flap of tent fabric and the quiet crunch as you shift your weight, feeling the plateau tilt beneath you in possibility. This is the consequence. You now stand at the threshold of a story big enough to rewrite textbooks. Your mission turns urgent. What you do next might unearth answers that the world has been chasing for centuries. A revelation so vast it could collapse all the safe explanations built atop these stones. A sense of unity settles on the group. Adam breaks the spell. So, do we tell the world yet, or crawl in ourselves? Nor grins nervously, her eyes wandering toward a blackened fissure at the base of the pyramid. It's as if the stones are daring you to go further. There's no backing away now. You check your harness, the crunch of sand sticking to your gloves as you ready yourself. Above, the sun blazes endless and oppressive, but underfoot, the breath of the hidden city feels chill and electric. The flashlight flickers as you shine it toward the first possible entry. You are no longer just a visitor to ancient Egypt. You have become a participant, one step away from slipping beneath the veil of history. Every echo in the tunnel, a thread leading deeper. Ahead are passages, arguments, and revelations waiting in the dark. The adventure that drew you here is just beginning, and the greatest secrets may be buried only a few paces below. The pulse of ancient engineering calls your name as sand grits between your teeth, your feet itching for that first step below the pyramid's shadow. And as dusk creeps over Giza, you glance back over your shoulder once, letting the wind catch your hat and laughter. The pyramids keep their counsel, for now. Edge of the Khafre pyramid, midday, you and two other researchers in sweat-stained shirts. The pyramid rises behind you, ancient blocks soaking up the heat, while every step presses grit deeper into your boots. The scanning monitor balances on a crate, its display flickering against the harsh Egyptian sun. That's when it hits, a surge of jagged lines across the radar feed. You lean closer. For a moment, nobody breathes. The heat is brutal up top, yet the screen gives off an odd chill, as if the tombs below have exhaled. The trace is too perfect, regular arcs and a spiral pattern slicing under the sand, nothing like the tangled mess of fractured rock. One of your companions, Ahmed, mutters under his breath. The words disappear into the low growl of the distant wind drifting off the desert. You try to school your face, but your eyebrows keep jumping. This is no forgotten crevice or wayward boulder. The radar's echo returns a crisp outline, long corridors, slight right angles, spaces that branch off and reconnect, as if drawn by a methodical hand. You recognize patterns that look far too intentional, tunnels bending into symmetrical loops, halls arranged in parallel. It could be a misreading, you think. But then the computer highlights a section, translating the underground into ghostly blue architecture, like a blueprint for a city buried in stone. Your mouth is dry, which you immediately blame on the sun rather than the gravity of the moment. Across the screen, a digital grid overlays the patterns, calculating dimensions as fast as your heart pounding in your ear. This is different from anything your equipment has picked up before. The underground appears organized, almost elegant in its geometry. Another researcher, Maya edges closer. She points at a spiral curling out from a cluster of smaller chambers. "That can't be limestone shifts," Maya says quietly. "It's too planned." You nod once, too sharply. This is what changes documentaries and textbooks. Your memory flicks back to the last time a radar anomaly in Egypt sent ripples through the news. Archaeologists had raised their brows, shaking off the excitement and reminding everyone that radar had found puzzles before, usually ending up as oddly shaped stone or quirks of the oldest landscape on Earth. A familiar skepticism tugs at the edge of your mind, as if a stern teacher is waiting to dismiss you back to reality. Still, you know this scan is different. The maze revealed here looks engineered, not accidental. A quiet shiver traces down your spine. The silence is finally broken. Ahmed cracks his knuckles and mutters, "If this is real, everything changes. Who built it? Why? Who built it? Why?" It sounds almost accusing, as though the sand itself is hiding a joke. The edges of your sight pulse with adrenaline. You step back and glance toward the base of the pyramid. Beyond the monuments and the herds of tourists, the western cemetery sprawls out, a landscape of weathered stone and sun-baked earth, now hiding what may be the entrance to something enormous. The stakes rise in your mind. If this isn't just another fluke, if these chambers are constructed, history gets turned upside down. The air above is so dry it crackles. But when you crouch down and press your palm to the dirt, you can feel the ghost of cold. Somewhere deep under this exact spot, the warmth of the Giza plateau stops abruptly. Cool air trickles up through invisible seams, just enough to brush across your wrist, reminding you that some secrets resist the sun. Suddenly, the screen stutters, then zooms as new data pours in. The spiral pattern appears again, its arms encircling runes lined up like a coiled crown. This time, the software attempts a rough 3D render, curved passages, vaulted roof lines as sharp as a modern subway grid. Forcing yourself to be cautious, you recall that some geologists have insisted such patterns in the past were mere tricks of layered stone or radar bouncing awkwardly. Ahmed, always quick on the draw, shakes his head. "If that's nature, then nature's got suspiciously good architects," he says. Just as you're digesting this, the pattern shifts. It repeats every few meters, spirals, rectangles, then a tight sequence of squares nested inside a ring. Maya squints, eyes glittering in the sun's glare. "We need to check calibration. This could be artifacting." She looks worried, but you both know that equipment quirks don't usually spell out blueprints. Not in patterns this deliberate. Here comes the twist. A new anomaly updates live, showing the double helix arrangement just beyond the perimeter. The sensor chirps, and the shape pops into view, oddly symmetrical, unlike any known natural underground formation. You and Maya exchange a long stare. Above, tourists snap selfies against time, scoured stone, time travelers oblivious to the drama underfoot. You draw in a steadying breath, feeling the moment pivot beneath you. You are not just looking at lines anymore. You are staring into the possibility of an entire city, shaped by hands that worked in total darkness thousands of years ago. You remember how, in the late 1990s, Another site sent waves through the news with a hidden chamber. Dismissed until later evidence vindicated those early scans. History, it seems, sometimes loops back on itself. Another wave of skepticism rushes back. The radar tech, battered and smudged from travel, has been wrong before. Mainstream archaeologists have already started their chorus, the same song they sing every time something extraordinary peeks out from the sand. Some argue the spiral signatures are nature at play, wind or water shaping rock in uncanny ways. Others warn about misfires, static, and the pitfalls of confirmation bias. You get it? Science isn't about wishful thinking. But this, you think, isn't wishful at all. The evidence glows beneath your feet. The heat beats down, but your mind syncs with the blueprint. You imagine the echoes below, footsteps in shadowed tunnels, granules of sand grinding under boots, the cold snap of subterranean air after hours spent under the relentless sun. You picture how it would feel to walk these corridors, flashlights sparking across stone, so precisely cut, it seems impossible. What if the underground stretches farther than you dare imagine? The atmosphere is heavy, but anticipation keeps you upright. Every repeat of those engineered patterns piles on the suspense. Your skin prickles at the implications, but you keep your feet rooted in reality. Out of habit, you glance to where the access shaft will be dug, roughly triangulated by the brightest cluster of anomalies. You almost taste the grit in your teeth. Ahmed whispers, as much to himself as you. This is why we scan, isn't it? To find the places nobody even remembers to look for anymore. An echo bounces in your head, not of footsteps, but of history's pulse quickening. For a moment, the mood lightens. Above ground, the desert spreads gold and endless, as if daring anyone to disturb it. Below, possibility tunnels on, cool and endless. You step back from the monitor and let your eyes adjust to the brilliance. The outline of the Khafre pyramid looming like a sentinel from another timeline. Once more monitor, dusty but defiant, has just upended everything you thought you knew about Giza's secrets. Now you find yourself caught in a new current. Do the blueprints underfoot mark the work of a forgotten civilization, or will the evidence turn out to be just another mirage? The answer lies in the darkness below your boots, waiting for you to descend. You exhale, feeling both the tremor of history and the thump of your own pulse. Above, the sun sears. Below, everything is cool, quiet, and unfinished. The story is only just unspooling. Giza Plateau, beneath the Khafre Pyramid, nightfall. You stand at the mouth of the new access shaft, the twilight above now, just a faint lavender glow overhead, cut away as your boots find metal rungs. One hand steadies the headlamp on your helmet. Each step squeals under your weight. With every downward meter, the relentless oven heat of the Egyptian surface fades until your sweat chills on your neck. You pause, boots grinding sand into ancient limestone. Down here, every movement echoes like you are trespassing in someone else's sanctum. At the shaft's end, your hand finds the wall. This stonework is precise. It isn't the jagged edge of a rockfall or the lazy chisel of grave robbers. The flashlight reveals finely cut masonry, square yet worn by time, each block pressed so closely to its neighbor that even centuries of shifting sand barely found a way through. You kneel, gloves slick with fine powder, to brush away a drift and reveal a seam running at a perfect right angle. This is a threshold, no accident of geology, but an entrance designed for those who knew what they were building. You cross into the first true corridor. The sound changes instantly. The air stills. Your breath grows louder, and pressing further, you hear the subtle whisper of grit as your boots disturb a path no one has walked for millennia. The beam of your headlamp throws a wild jumble of shadow up the walls every time your hand trembles. Ancient, deliberate marks, carved in straight lines, dart in and out of the edge of your light. The walls here aren't bare. They seem, impossibly, to have been planned for movement, like the corridor of a subway if the subway track were buried before the rest of the city was ever built. Here's the twist. The passage doesn't just go straight. It spirals gently downward, following a massive coil toward a darkness which never feels quite empty. You find a stone curb set into the floor, grains of Black River pebbles, distinct from the local ochre sand, collect where the wind and boots have not scattered them. With a jolt, you recall the stories that ancient Egyptians engineered entire landscapes for water, not just for survival, but for mystery. The way channeled rain is never allowed to pool into chaos. Somewhere above you, the Khafre pyramid's great mass presses down, but here the air moves, cooler and quicker, as if channeled by some unseen, clever system. This isn't a tomb. It feels like a piece of infrastructure, meant for transport or control. The corridor bends again, and the light caresses a set of faded ochre spirals, inscribed at regular intervals along the lower walls. They almost shimmer under your lamp, a pattern that calls to mind a circuit diagram drawn by a hand too ancient to grasp. Was this just decoration? You remember the experts' cautious warnings in their blandest prose. Probably the weathered mark of a natural geologic process, they say, or the echo of a faulty instrument tangled by eons of sediment. Yet, in front of you, the pattern matches the engineering of the stone, right along the floor where water, or perhaps something else, might be directed. You feel a flicker of vindication for every wild-eyed theorist dismissed on morning news programs. You check your comms, a quick update from the surface, distant and tinny. The outside world still argues. Word is already circulating about your scans and what they might mean. Some researchers now publicly hedge their bets. If even part of this tunnel system is confirmed, everything from Giza's blueprint to the accepted timeline of engineering, possibly even ancient globalization, faces radical revision. But most mainstream archaeologists stay quiet or double down. The term radar error becomes a punchline. You lower yourself to a crouch, letting your gloved hand rest on a carved channel cut into the sandstone, smooth and broad, but clearly artificial. Then glance up as your headlamp flickers through a low arch. The air rushes here, a steady breeze that carries the cool breath of the deep. The temperature has dropped so much it prickles your skin, though the desert above still radiates its late sunlight. The atmosphere is charged, as if the tunnel holds its own weather. Every few steps, you stop and listen. Grit slides beneath your boots, but deeper in the darkness, nothing stirs. No animal calls, just your own breathing and the soft, constant echo. as if each footstep spins a thread through time. Minutes pass. The corridor widens, then narrows. You reach a spot where water has clearly flowed in the recent past. Your headlamp glints off a line of mineral deposits, a chalky crescent partway up one wall, unmistakably shaped by a long-vanished stream. Down here, water isn't an invader. It looks almost domesticated, ushered and managed before vanishing back into the withered rock. Somewhere in a parallel world, modern subway planners would kill for such elegant resourcefulness. Centuries ahead of their time, the builders knew their hydrology. You feel the weight of this knowledge press against you, reassuring and daunting all at once. Suddenly, you spot a device strapped to the wall, a hard plastic data recorder left by the surface team. The last readings flicker on its small screen, a ghostly scan of coiling lines, geometric shadows, and faint, regular interruptions beneath. The pattern of the pyramid itself is reflected, warped, and mirrored underground. Your pulse jumps. Evidence is stacking up, and somewhere in the offices of cautious academics, doubt may be beginning to erode. For a moment, you remember the wild controversy that erupted with the Dead Sea Scrolls, a find that set the world alight after months of dismissal. Mainstream archaeology initially scoffed, then scrambled to catch up. And now, you feel that tipping point stirring beneath your own feet. You shelve that thought as your gloves brush over a tiny carved emblem, a waterfowl, wings folded into a perfect curl, framed by two undulating lines. Its symbolism hums beneath your skin. Control, flow, guidance, a signature of purposeful creation. Odd how some stories cycle, dismissed decades or centuries ago, then reappear in time-worn stone and digital data. The evidence here feels thickening. You pause. This is no longer a debate over abstract sandstone layers or statistical errors. You are inside the argument itself, picking your way through cold broth air while dust halos your lamp in visible rings. As you angle deeper, you sense that you are close to something new. The tunnel's acoustic heartbeat has changed. Now, each sound bounces longer, richer. Your headlamp bounces off a sudden fall of finer sand, shaped like a broad sloping silt fan. The corridor's slope grows imperceptibly steeper. The stone beneath feels less worn, edges sharper, like your boots are trespassing in a part of the world that was never meant to see the day. Every moment, the spell of the surface belongs less. Here, you are a guest of the underworld now. You realize you have crossed from a known monument, a marvel mapped and measured by generations, into the engineered unknown. The consequences are simple to sum up. If the underground system is confirmed, accepted history may never look the same again. With each echo and scrape, you carry the burden and thrill of rewriting the story beneath Giza. You pause on the threshold of a broader darkness. The tunnel widens ahead. A faint vibration on the air hints at cavernous space. Will the mysteries deepen? The only way forward is through. And as your lamp's beam arcs into a void that seems impossibly broad, you can almost feel history contract, ready to spring open with another reveal. Giza Plateau, minutes after descent, you and your heartbeat in the first major subterranean chamber. Your palm presses against the stone. The texture surprises you. It is not rugged or haphazard. Even in the stuttering floodlight beams, you see that the surface is subtly polished, unnaturally flat. The stone here is cool compared to the punishing sun above, and for a long moment, that rare chill is all you notice. Then your eye adjusts to the bigger picture, and your breath catches. The chamber extends, precise, almost geometric, walls intersecting at crisp right angles, ceiling arching just enough to hint someone planned airflow. They built this, not simply carved it out for storage or burial. The longer you scan, the more impossible it seems to dismiss as a natural cavern. Each junction aligns with the next, as if the builders worked from a blueprint more meticulous than any you have seen from supposed desert nomads or even Old Kingdom architects. Doubt evaporates, replaced by a thrill that zips the length of your spine. This was constructed with intent, maybe even with knowledge modern engineers would envy. You walk carefully. Every step sends up a puff of ancient dust, gritty and dry. It seems to protest your intrusion now. Tiny clouds tumbling briefly in the flashlight halo, before settling back over centuries. Your boot turns up a scalloped mark on the floor, something deliberate, like the guidelines masons leave before pouring concrete for a skyscraper. Only, this mark sits 100 meters below the Khafre pyramid, where no heavy machine should ever have reached. There is a hush here, an atmosphere molded not just by the press of earth, but by the strange symmetry itself. Echoes snap off the walls in strange patterns, crisp like notes in a stone amphitheater. Sometimes your own breath comes back to you out of sync, as if someone else were exhaling in tandem. In one alcove, your partner Amani trails her gloved fingers along the wall, eyebrows arched high above her mask. The faint markings etched there are not decorative. The lines crisscross at measured angles, almost like architectural blueprints. Amani glances at you and whispers, deadpan, that it looks more advanced than the plans for Cairo's new metro line. You move toward the closest opening, a rectangular arch where the ceiling bends into an ellipse, a design too clean for random washout. Beyond it, the corridor feeds into another chamber. Each threshold you cross proves the pattern. Courts flanked by halls, false turns masking side tunnels, right angles broken only by purposeful curves. As you sweep your flashlight over the next space, the beam skims along an arrhythmic line that plunges out of view into darkness, a spiral. It takes several beats for you to pass the image, a helical groove, wide enough for a grown adult to walk down, winding into an even lower level. Spiral staircases are nothing unusual in modern buildings, but here, under the Giza sands, they seem almost extravagant. You kneel at the edge, running your hand along the carved guide, and grit from the surface bites your palm. The spiral feels deliberately engineered, not just carved away by eager tomb robbers or the slow creep of groundwater. Someone designed this descent with care. That means someone understood how weight, people, and possibly even machines would move down here. You take a pause, letting the enormity of the engineered maze settle in. Above you, history has always assumed that burial chambers and random storage nooks were more coincidence than calculation. Now, face to face with tight geometry and efficient passageways, you feel as if every well-worn textbook upstairs has been quietly erased. The entire underground network, if it continues as you suspect, is less a storage area and more a chessboard of chambers and connective veins, carefully mapped. There is a stubborn logic to it, one that ordinary geology refuses. You imagine, for a second, a simulation like those underground labyrinths you have seen in sci-fi blockbusters, except these walls are real, far older than any computer model and more permanent than concrete. The sheer scale leaves you reeling. Your radio crackles. The Japanese research team working near the Western Cemetery is checking in, their signal echoing like a synthetic ghost through the thick walls. They mention an L-shaped anomaly, a void traced by electrical resistivity and radar, the kind of lines that pop on a scan but disappear to the naked eye. They are giddy, and you sense their tone. A blend of scientific awe and a pinch of rivalry punctures your focused hush. You stand in the shadowy junction where these hallways feed into adjoining courts. That news about the L-shaped anomaly means the underground city might be even larger, perhaps extending out toward the burial grounds, where no one expected anything but stone and dust. You wipe your brow. Above ground, the Giza sun feels like a personal challenge. But below, there is suddenly a cool, insistent current of air. It smells less of desiccation, more of minerals and old ambition. For a moment, the temperature drop is so stark, it almost feels as if some primitive venting is at work, intentional cooling from engineers lost to history. You take stock. Everything you see and feel points away from coincidence. This is not just nature's random masterpiece. It is a place mapped for purpose. Chambers, staircases, aligned voids, all too precise. Suddenly, your foot strikes a flat edge. You look down. It is not a random slab, but a fitted threshold stone, like something from a museum's meticulously reconstructed facade. There is no mistaking the message. Every passage here declares design. Every surface was chosen, not chanced upon. A beat passes while you soak in the implications. Just months ago, you laughed as colleagues discounted rumors about hidden cities under world monuments. Old myths about lost labyrinths always drew scorn, just as tales of Troy did before its discovery. Now, those laughs echo back, sounding oddly hollow against cold, proof-laden stone. Your thoughts flicker to the broader world. Giza was supposed to be conquered, fully mapped, its secrets wrung out by generations. But this engineered maze is something else entirely. It is as if an old tale, dismissed for centuries, has finally stepped out into the light. You remember the air of skepticism that met early claims of Mayan cities lost under jungle canopies, derided by experts, then vindicated by radar. This feels like that, squared. The creeping suspicion that nothing at Giza is truly accidental keeps you moving forward. You scan your floodlight beam over a spiral stair, one more secret from a civilization that is suddenly feeling a lot less ancient and a lot more advanced. You press onward, past the L structure's rumored direction, anchored by the hope that some artifact or code might break the last wall of mystery. If this maze truly runs beneath the Western Cemetery and links to the Khafre pyramid, then nothing about Egypt's ancient history can stay the same. That realization lingers as a cold sweat prickles across your arms. You look at Amani and see your own mixture of awe and unease mirrored back. Doubt, for the moment, is replaced by the wild hope that you are not in a tomb, but in the middle of the oldest underground city ever built. You pause there, light flickering across the fitted stones, the faint rush of mineral-scented air in your ears. The investigation is only beginning, and ahead, a corridor branches west into even greater darkness. Giza Plateau. Afternoon. You and your mixed crew of geologists, excavators, and 2 radar techs, backs pressed to the raw stone just inside the westward corridor. Above, the heat is ruthless. Sand sifting at your ankles, sweat rolling down necks despite the promise of cool air below. But beneath the surface, shadows swallow up the outside world. Your flashlight blade reveals a sudden bend in the main passage, then a subtle twist, an unmistakable spiral burrowing away from the straight-edged logic of pharaohs' tombs. The kind of geometry no modern engineer would expect unless looking at blueprints for a city's luxury subway or the parking garage of a mega mall. Your radar specialist, Khaled, stands shoulder to shoulder with you, projecting real-time overlays against the living limestone. Green lines trace what look like corkscrew corridors, lines so precise they'd trigger building code, nightmares in most contemporary cities. Khaled's voice is steady, but he can't hide the surprise tickling his words. Well, you see how the density changes? These curves drop deep, not the usual random splits you get with natural faults. Some of your team, veteran geologists who've seen tectonic plates do stranger things, start tossing out words like karst and hydrothermal action. Their mutterings are half comfort, half denial. But even they lean in, unable to dismiss the near-perfect spiral imprint that curls ahead and down. For years, anyone suggesting an engineered labyrinth under Giza would get a professional side-eye, maybe lumped in with tales of Atlantis or lost continents. You remember the smirks when someone once tried to compare Egyptian engineering to Roman or even modern feats. Now, under your gloved fingertips, the surface of the tunnel wall feels anything but rough-hewn or haphazard. In places, there's still a faint trace of tooling marks, too regular for the chaos of erosion. It's as if an ancient builder, impossibly patient, carved this passage while humming a tune nobody recalls, leaving behind orderly grooves worn smooth by centuries of wind and shifting sand. Your own anticipation builds as Khaled toggles the radar's color palette. Suddenly, the screen flares with a new discovery. The spiral doesn't just coil a few meters. It dives, stacking on itself like a snail shell, threading into levels that shouldn't exist. A hasty swipe at the dust, and you realize this is no isolated architectural quirk. There are 2, maybe 3, similar signatures in the data, echoing a pattern closer to design than chance. In plain terms, you're likely staring at an underground spiral staircase, not a natural accident. One of the Egyptologists, Sarah, stands back and shakes her head, eyebrows knitting in disbelief. If this really goes down as far as these scans say, that's twice as deep as the water table. The words hang heavy, an unspoken dare to dig deeper. Every so often, you catch a soft echo, a hush rolling down from the spiral's dark throat, neither male nor animal, just the memory of motion. A few team members remain skeptical. It's not their first rodeo. They recall the time a radar anomaly near Saqqara turned out to be nothing more than collapsed sediment, sparking weeks of drama and apologetic press releases. Could be equipment error, or just the way radar bounces in oddly shaped rock, one mutters, running his hands along the limestone, looking for natural clues instead of human fingerprints. Still, there's too much symmetry, too much intention. The spiral architecture seems to spiral beneath, not just your feet, but the certainties you brought into this dig. You recall the last great world-changing shock, a little comet crater in the Yucatan, dismissed for generations until debris samples forced the experts to eat their hats. Maybe what you're witnessing will do the same for the Giza underground city idea. You step further in, the corridor tightening. The quality of air changes. A rush of cool, shallow wind gusts upward, heavy with the scent of ancient earth and something oddly metallic. Your breath echoes. Sand crunches beneath boots. The world above, with its orderly streets and tourist buses, feels unreal from down here. Khaled and Sarah whisper over the flickering radar images, only to freeze as a new lobe branches from the main spiral. Its signature diverges, thin lines flickering against a backdrop of void. These don't follow the logic of a simple corridor or storm drain. They branch in unnatural, almost architectural fashion, like hallways in a stadium parking structure, radiating out in deliberate fashion. Then the radar signal catches something subtler, faint, meandering ribbons that run perpendicular to the main spiral. Dark bands, no more than a hand's width, sometimes joining, sometimes vanishing into blankness. At first, you have the urge to dismiss them as noise or scanning artifacts. But after toggling the software, the pattern holds. Sarah kneels, pressing her palm to a joint in the wall, rapping gently until the tone shifts. Feels hollow here. I bet that's a channel, maybe for water. For a moment, everyone holds their breath. In the world above, floodwaters have always been the enemy, especially near the Western Cemetery, where runoff once threatened priceless tombs. But beneath, to find possible water channels is like discovering city plumbing. Your mind races to what's known of ancient ingenuity, the canals at Fayum, the lost reservoirs at Saqqara. Egyptian builders, masters of capturing every rare drop, weaving complicated hydrological tricks into their monuments. It seems fitting, yet unnerving, that they might have run pipes or passages right through Giza's sacred underbelly. The practical implication lands like a stone in a quiet pond. If these underground features are real, spanning both spiral staircases and parallel waterways, the Giza Pyramid complex might have functioned as more than just a tomb or astronomical marker. Maybe it was a hub, a protected hive capable of storing or redirecting water, allowing a city to flourish even as Egypt's desert pressed closer. Year after year, another twist. The scanning overlay reveals a sudden curve, where the spiral collides with a grid-like structure, just meters from the subsurface shadows of the Western Cemetery. The geometry of the lines resembles a keyhole, as if meant to link chambers intentionally. Some on the team suggest it could be a lost entrance to another layer or a collapsed well. Others lean towards pure coincidence. But you feel the pull of narrative, the temptation to imagine hidden archives, forbidden rituals, or even escape routes carved by hands not so very different from yours. You pause, letting the silence settle. Nothing here has been proven, not yet. Evidence mounts, certainty slips. Mainstream archaeological consensus fights the seduction of novelty, reminding you that not everything stunning is true. Still, the data refuses to look away. A web of spirals, stacked corridors, and ghostly channels weaving the underworld beneath your boots. If it is all a glitch, it's the most ingenious glitch ever recorded at Giza. With every new layer peeled back by radar, your sense of the possible expands. You remember how the skeptical laughter faded when satellite imagery finally revealed lost Amazonian cities. How, overnight, the line between myth and science scrambled like a radio dial, searching for the right frequency. Here in the gloom, flashlight beams flickering against immaculate stone, you are forced to wonder, did ancient engineers shape this spiral for hidden reasons? Was it ritual, practical, or something Earth itself conspired to create? For now, the answer retreats down a spiral, sinking just beyond your reach. But the doorway is open, and your shadow stretches toward the next unsolved corridor, echoing steps of curiosity through shadowed Giza. A single fact remains: beneath the heat and sand, the story of the Giza underground city deepens, waiting for the next sweep of light or revival of ancient memory. What will the next chamber reveal? Beneath the fractured stone offshoot, just after first light, you crouch so close to the jagged wall that your knees grind into cold, damp earth. There is no wind down here, only the hush of buried eons, and, beneath that, an undertone, the faintest gurgle, like memory clinging to the ground. The instrument in your hand, smeared in gritty dust, transmits its signal into the earth, letting you listen to what lies beneath stone and sand. Your colleague sets a battered laptop against the ground, its screen flickering with static patterns. Most visitors to the Giza Plateau come armed with sun hats and Instagram dreams, but here you are, chasing ghosts with radar and a lot of caffeine. The display hums to life as you glide the sensor across a patch that feels spongier than the bone-dry blocks nearby. The radar shows a mesh of pale, wavy lines that shouldn't be here. Certainly not where the textbooks say there should only be compacted fill and ancient bedrock. You speak quietly, more to the stone than to anyone nearby. There's something below, you murmur, channels that bend and border the massive quarried blocks. Some lines flare and arc, spiraling out and looping back, like the schematics of a labyrinth in an engineer's notebook. The lines do not belong to chaos or time's erosion. They snake beside the foundation, suggestive of planning rather than accident. Your colleague, face half shadowed by the blue light from the display, leans in. Do you think these could be ancient drainage runs? His voice is modern and skeptical. Could this be evidence of water management and not just a rabbit warren of faults? The question echoes, a quiet gambit against centuries of academic certainty. Ancient Egyptians were masters, not just of stone, but of water. The Nile was their timeline, their measure of years and lives, controlled and summoned with engineering that rivaled anything seen until modern aquifers. Evidence of artificial water channels would imply these tunnels beneath Khafre were never meant to be simple corridors. They would be arteries, pulsing under the pyramid for purposes beyond burial or ceremony. You extend the probe again, tracing a path where earth gives under your touch, softer, almost moist with the memory of long evaporated flows. For a moment, the ancient dust falling from the ceiling catches the beam of your flashlight, and the shadows flicker as if something beneath is breathing. Then, a chill, cool and sudden, brushes your right cheek, startling you like the draft from an opened refrigerator. Above, the air is stifling. Here, fresh cool pushes out from a split in the stone. Water's memory, defiant to the desert above. The radar's mesh clarifies. Some passages wind in organic spirals. Others run straight and true, parallel with the perfect intent of human design. This is the point where speculation becomes more than a hobby. If these are man-made, not geological quirks, they could rewrite what you know, what anyone trusts, about Egyptian ambition. The thought crawls easily beneath your skin. You sketch a note in your log, hand only slightly shaking, the excitement nearly masking your dread. Suddenly, your colleague points at a new scan emerging on the laptop, jaw slack with disbelief. The image shows a channel bypassing the main hall, twisting around and threading into a cramped alcove. This section appears too smooth, too calculated, to be an accident of geology. It has the clean edges, even on a grainy scan, that usually scream of engineering, or at least stubborn human intention. Let's be clear, no one living has ever mapped, let alone verified, this level of underground complexity at Giza. The last time anything this controversial came up, like those infamous hidden chambers that everyone called a radar fluke until the ground was finally dug up, the world scoffed. And then, suddenly, everyone wanted to know more. For one ringing instant, silence stretches. You try, really try, to summon the kind of practical skepticism your mentors would demand. Maybe this is an old waterway, naturally carved by some prehistoric Nile channel. Maybe the radar is spitting out a mirage. That's what critics always say. These images tend to look engineered until you factor in weird mineral seams and ancient seismic cracks. But the pattern is too elegant. Even the most stubborn geologists would have to twist their logic into yoga poses to explain this construction away as blind luck. The path of these tunnels matches too many ancient texts that hint at sacred rivers beneath the monuments, at secret routes only priests could walk between the world of the dead and the realm of the living. Your colleague interrupts your reverie. If this confirms artificial channels, he whispers, it changes everything. Not just for Giza, but for every timeline on which modern history is balanced. That sense of escalation, of the ground shifting beneath the very scaffolding of what is known, seizes the air. You realize that, for centuries, built-in skepticism had always muffled hints like these. Breather. If this proves to be real, the implications could force historians and scientists to consider entire new chapters in Egypt's story. The light on your scanner flickers again, showing a fork in one of the passageways. The left path hugs the pyramid's lintel stones. The right angles down, its scan brightening as if flagging an anomaly. Is it water still flowing beneath the rock? Or just the ghost of ancient intentions, channels built to feed the tomb, to siphon the flood, or to guide something far stranger? An unsettling thought drifts through your mind. Suppose previous radar oddities, those that experts coolly dismissed as natural, had only seemed false because no one expected this level of precision from 4,000-year-old builders. Maybe these anomalies aren't the exception. They are the rule, and you've just been slow to acknowledge it. The oppressive weight of the above-ground heat is gone. Instead, here in the gloom, you feel a freshness. Each breath is tinged with a mineral trace, the taste of ancient water, and every shuffle of your boots disturbs grains that haven't seen daylight since the last dynasty. The world above could be any century. Below, you sense the slow pulse of the pyramid waiting, as watchful as ever. You step cautiously into the fog, boots scraping against slick stone, and try to keep your thoughts from galloping. There's an ambient tension in this underground maze that no grant proposal or lecture hall could ever prepare you for. Pattern interrupt. Suddenly, a fragment of red-painted limestone, impossibly clean, sharp-edged, catches the flashlight near the angle of the right-hand tunnel. The paint is still vivid, ochre against the grey, in a place supposedly untouched for millennia. You pick it up. The surface is marked, cryptic but distinct, a repeated glyph, looping in a spiral. Breather. The presence of this marked fragment is proof of deliberate action. Somebody, long ago, shaped and left a message here. Your colleague swallows loudly, voice trembling. If this was a channel, why would there be art? And this far from any known burial. It draws you deeper, wondering not just what the Egyptians built, but what story they tried to seal under tons of stone. The sound of running water teases your ears again, although now you cannot tell if memory is playing tricks, looping the same atmosphere you noticed before. Crumbling sand beneath your fingers is cool and fine, as if it's been percolated for centuries. The darkness is constant, broken only by the bobbing, nervous light. You draw the fragment close, searching for any parallel in your memory, any hint from museum displays or crumbling old journals. The spiral must mean something, perhaps movement, perhaps power coursing beneath, or perhaps the very depiction of water, an eternal returning current. Up ahead, the passageways vanish into shadow, the draft only growing colder. You and your colleague watch the beam's glow bounce off a slick patch on the tunnel wall. The stone here is impossibly smooth, as if burnished by more than centuries of dust, maybe even water's endless caress. You log every detail. If confirmed, these teasing half-revelations could upend everything archaeologists thought they knew. A blueprint beneath the Khafre pyramid, etched not in scrolls or star charts, but in real stone, with tangible, engineered veins, could shift all the lines in history books. Above, the world will awake soon. For now, you crouch in this silent artery, heart pounding with a mixture of awe and nervous laughter. How many times have similar discoveries been dismissed, only to re-emerge with even more force? Here, you are no longer just a visitor to the past. You are walking the veins of Giza, senses raw, aware that with each scan, each dusty breath, you are on the edge of unraveling a secret as old as the Nile itself. Between the scuffed edge of the scan and the swirl of ochre on limestone, you realize one startling thing. The blueprint beneath your hands is no accident. This is survival, legacy, and perhaps a myth inscribed in stone, just waiting for morning to bring fresh eyes and more questions. The ground above is heating up. But down here, within this secret maze, you carry the memory of water and the possibility of history rewritten beneath the ancient sand. Makeshift field lab atop the sand, midday sun trembling on metal tables, you surrounded by a buzz of frazzled researchers crashing in and out of the tent with nervous updates. Select flies zigzagged between water bottles and printouts, and the collective heat draws sweat from your scalp all the way down to your collar. You hunch over a battered laptop that feels exactly as sticky and over-caffeinated as you do. An alert pops up. Another email chain adds its static to the morning's swell, subject lines thick with words like anomaly, speculation, and, most often, error. Your thumb scrolls. Message after message from mainstream archaeologists tries to wave away the excitement like someone swatting at a cloud of gnats. The skeptic's tone is lemon sour and familiar. Everyone's seen radar glitches before. The odd spiral pattern in the readings under Giza? That could be an artifact of the equipment or the mark of ancient underground rivers. Someone mentions mirages once, a supposed chamber under Saqqara had turned out to be a shifting water table. It's a greatest hits album of scientific caution, all on repeat. Beneath the table, stacks of processed radar printouts pull at your sleeve, nagging you with their crisp, recurring lines. You turn one over in your hand, feeling the weight of impossible regularity. There's a spiral, etched dense and deep in the data, drawn so rigid that your eyes itch for a ruler. If this were nature, it would be nature with a tape measure and a draftsman's ego. Your mind races. How often had earlier finds announced, with a blast of hype evaporated once the sand settled? The mantra of the establishment is clear. When in doubt, it's probably just weird rocks. But this time, you can practically hear the stone under your feet humming with secrets. Somewhere below the hum of ferns, under the hiss of laptop processors, there's a physical truth, stubborn and unmoved by anyone's newsletter. Your pulse matches the tremor of air that sometimes breezes up from a crack near the tent. A strange, cool gust, impossibly out of place in midday Egypt, slips through the seams and brings the scent of ancient stone and old water. The tent flaps stutter, and two colleagues argue in tense, stage-whispered French. You've seen old-timers cut discoveries down to size before, but rarely with this edge of defensive panic. One of them, Dr. Nasser, jabs a finger at your spiral printout. See? Natural formation. The limestone does this. Equipment error. We have seen it again and again. She gestures at a faded, folded poster, diagrams from a decade-old dig, an entire wing of radar anomalies ruled out and consigned to the archives. There's the weight of old winds in her words, but also something taut. Maybe the first crack of uncertainty. You half smile, brushing grit off your laptop. This is practically a replay of the whole Troy affair, you think. Once, walls of experts had declared Homer's city pure myth. Then Schliemann started digging, and the textbooks needed new chapters. Egg, face, repeat. There's something delicious in the standoff. Today's certainty makes tomorrow's red-faced apology. Outside, the wind carries the chatter of tourists migrating between the Sphinx and the snack stall. Above the tents, the Khafre pyramid floats in heat shimmer. you catch yourself tracing the spiral patterns with your index finger. Each circuit drops further into the radar data, deeper into the rock, abandoning the ordinary rules of surface ruins. Earlier scans interrupted by technical faults now seem pointed. They snap to life when the antenna passes a certain threshold, outlining not random mess but stacked, descending chambers. In the loud hush of midday, the implication lands. The real story isn't up here in the sun, but somewhere far below, in engineered silence and shadow. A shout splits the low hum. Someone from the dig team bursts into the tent, waving a roll of updated scan results. New data, another layer. Cleaner images slicing through static. You grab a printout, the page slightly sticky with the scent of graphite and glue. Even the most cynical eyes around you fall silent as the fresh spiral map comes into view. The radar now outlines not just rings, but interlocking corridors that twist inward beneath the plateau, their precision mocking any idea of a geological fluke. If the imagery holds up, this would look like architecture, not accident. A breathless moment suspends reality, and then your senses rush back. Your knees bump the folding chair. A seam in the tent wall flutters against your calf. You glance at Dr. Nasser, searching for the practiced shrug that always ends these disputes. But she hesitates, brow pinched, lips pressed tight. This is more than a blip. If the images endure scrutiny, you might be staring at evidence of construction on a scale that dwarfs the visible pyramids themselves. The data does more than raise eyebrows. It threatens to torch the whole library of what experts thought they knew about Giza. You step outside into blinding light. Every nerve bristles with the whiplash between the world above, baking and loud, and the world below, cold and echoing in your mind. Sand crunches in your boot. The dry heat folds around you, unyielding. The ground itself suddenly feels less solid, a skin stretched over something vast, hidden, and waiting. At this point, the skepticism grows louder, not softer. Mobile phones buzz as word leaks out onto social media. Comment threads stew with references to junk science and grainy blobs. But others, emboldened by the stark new images, begin to marshal counterclaims. If even a fraction of this is constructed, someone emails you. It will rewrite Egyptology, and not quietly either. You close the laptop as the argument keeps spinning, like a rumor twisting through a crowded market. Today's anomaly might yet be tomorrow's headline revelation. A soft thud from beneath your work table draws your attention back to Earth. The team's desperate for verification. Some want to halt the entire dig, worried about contamination or a diplomatic incident. Others are busy mapping out the next phase, eyes fever bright with ambition. You stare at the flickering tent lights, feeling the push-pull of history itself, fighting to either reset or rewrite. For a moment, all debate falls away, and the only sound is the hush of a breeze channeling through the tent's shadowed interior. A cool breath, as if the ground itself is exhaling ancient secrets, swirling dust and possibility into the sweating air above. You realize something real and engineered may lurk beneath the Giza plateau. If it's what the new radar hints at, everything you thought you understood about this landscape, about ancient Egypt, and about human ingenuity is in play. The echoes in these shadowed, lopped passageways now feel closer, more insistent. And as those first controversial images speed across the globe, you sense the fury, doubt, and wonder gathering into a perfect archaeological storm. You lift the printouts once more, gaze fixed on precise stone lines stitched through the bedrock like the circuitry of a lost civilization. Strange, how much history clings to the little arguments on a sun-baked morning, and how little sand stands between certainty and awe. The questions wouldn't wait, and neither will you. Under the burning sky, with the world's eyes shifting toward your corner of the plateau, you feel the pull, downward, toward the cool breath of those untold corridors where facts turn into legends. In the next minutes, your path will draw you closer to the Western Cemetery, near the grid of excavation flags, quivering like navigational markers on the edge of a promise. Western Cemetery, late afternoon, under the tangled webbing of survey flags. Here is where you find yourself, side by side with two Japanese researchers juggling wire-tied scanners and crisp notebooks. Sweat-stained but intent. The city of Cairo hums far beyond the dunes, almost irrelevant when the real action is a few feet beneath your boots. A collaborator's tip is the reason you are here, pacing over dunes that have hidden more secrets than Las Vegas vaults. A thin breeze stirs the layers of that gritty Giza sand, spicy with desert minerals and the faintest trace of old resin, as you focus on the soft whir of machines translating ancient stone into digital lines. It's almost funny. Modern science fiction in the birthplace of all human myth, here to read what a pharaoh's masons meant to stay silent. You kneel as a pair of hands pass you, a thermal tablet. Its screen bristles with data, but one distinct feature flickers back in celestial blue, an L-shaped shadow, sharpened and unnatural against the rest of the bedrock. The moment is as tense as a quarterback waiting for the snap. One researcher grins, her fingertips trembling just a fraction. This is the stuff of grants and gossip, the stuff that lingers on the mind through sandstorms and bureaucracy. It only takes a minute for the scan operator to outline the L shape with stylus marks. They babble in low voices, pointing to grid coordinates and uttering the phrase, regular cutoff, engineered. An irregularity in a graveyard of regularity. For a split second, you brace for disappointment. Was it going to be another fancy boulder fooled by the tech? But another scan settles the doubt. The ground-penetrating radar hums again, deeper this time. Its signal bounces off stone, then emptiness, then stone once more. Like slicing open a multi-layer cake with a digital knife, you see slices of the plateau reveal levels, platforms, odd voids, and winding through it, glittering like a vein of quartz, is a spiral channel, the likes of which no gravedigger or tomb builder ever intentionally left. The details are fuzzy, but unmistakable. What appears to be a feature that could resemble a massive stair, corkscrewing down and away beneath the cemetery's grid. You blink. Is this real? You trade looks with your Japanese colleagues. One of them mutters, "This is not fault line. This is too smooth." Spiral, like staircase. There it is. The ghost of advanced construction methods, buried beneath Giza's less glamorous western edge. Ancient Egyptian plans with a side of Greek geometry, it seems. The details are clearer. The longer you stare, slab-shaped features that align like a snail shell, broad enough to admit a crowd, and always dropping, dropping out of visible range. The sand above is burning hot, almost cruel, but down below you can almost feel the hush, a rush of cold air prickling your scalp with expectation. Cut to a twist. A seasoned archaeologist from your crew, arms crossed with practiced skepticism, leans in to study the live feed. With a rueful chuckle, he tries to wave it off. These things happen. Sand, pressure, time. Sometimes the stone fools even the best machine. The Japanese lead fires back, almost gently. Natural geology never makes an L this sharp. Look again. It's intentional. This looks like architecture. You sense the room of academics drawing invisible lines in the air, each staking out their territory between daring and doubt. That's the pattern here. Every revelation, every pixel on the scan, comes up against a wall of expertise stacked tall with ancient textbooks. But your nose wrinkles at the notion of mistaking a geological accident for a spiral staircase that corkscrews straight through what should be untouched rock. This is the moment when tradition and technology begin to quarrel more loudly. The air feels electric with skepticism and hope. The scanners do not lie, but people can blink at the truth all the same. A short pause for clarity as the evidence mounts. The stakes have changed. Now you are not simply charting a lost burial plot. Now you are mapping the possibility of an entire, engineered city beneath the plateau. One that means starting over in how you understand ancient Egyptian ambition and reach. Sensors catch another anomaly. The electrical resistivity tomography, calibrated by your Japanese collaborators to cut through Giza's fuzzy limestone signature, catches subtle shifts just below a 2,000-year-old mastaba. Unlike the scattershot static of natural cracks, the data crisply outlines the L shape again, this time interlocked with other smaller features, corridors perhaps. The scan operator's pencil wobbles with excitement, sketching out little rectangles that seem to crowd around the spiral stairs like satellites around a cosmic engine. Maybe we just found the ancient parking garage. You reach out to feel the sand, still baking under Egypt's late light. It crumbles through your fingers, sharp with salt and centuries-old dust. Then a new twist lands. The deeper radar cut, a new sweep, done for redundancy, maps the entire spiral as plunging not just a few meters, but extending deep below, vanishing into a blank screen well past the reach of handheld tech. The operator squints. We need to bore a camera down there. It isn't normal void. Something's built. The tone is quiet, breathless. The skepticism, though, is far from silent. A historian quietly voices another challenge, muttering that such features might still be caused by waterworks, or the tortured rock reshaping under millennia of pressure. You have heard this before, a kind of archaeological déjà vu. Everyone remembers when radar scans changed everything at the Bosnian pyramids, or depending on which dinner table you were at, changed nothing at all. That tension is familiar. The evidence leaps off the screen, but belief drags its heels. You take a step back, eyes burning from the bright afternoon sun. For one dizzying instant, you recall every photographed speculation of hidden cities below Rome, or lost labyrinths in Crete, and wonder if you are now standing at the Giza Plateau's great rebuttal. The machinery drone resets your focus. This is not Atlantis. This is concrete, beeping, and uncomfortably real. Someone shouts as a printout curls off the field printer. The image, a negative, all sharp contrasts, shows the L-shaped form at exact right angles. The grayscale stair climbing down like a spiral ramp in a parking tower. The technician scrawls a date and time in the margin. You are now fully invested in the hunt. Above, tourists cluster for selfies with the Sphinx, unaware that the map beneath their shoes has changed by the minute. Let's pause for breath. This is a watershed moment. If these radar images hold up under excavation, history would pivot. The existence of a sprawling spiral staircase or engineered L structures under Giza would mean not just new chambers, but an entirely new tier of urban planning, one far older and more technologically urgent than anyone dared phrase in mainstream textbooks. The Giza plateau is shifting under the world's gaze. A brief compass line. You have gone from a tip-off at the edge of the cemetery to a standing room. Only congregation around a humming screen, scanning legacy into revelation. The light turns honey gold, but below the surface, the scan images promise shadowed air and cold, tight passageways. You can almost feel the echo of your own breath in those tunnels, each flick of the flashlight glinting off stone that has not reflected light in thousands of years. A shiver replaces the desert heat, and for a flickering moment you realize, if even half of what you are seeing is truly man-made, it is not a tomb you are about to enter, but a city designed to remain unseen. The researchers begin carefully marking the grid for a pilot borehole. Evidence has forced their hand. The sand is swept back, revealing packed clay crumbling at the lips of the newest excavation. The skeptics hover nearby, their questions now edged with a reluctant curiosity. Beside the scanning rig, you sense a growing consensus, a fragile, restless agreement that something new has made its entrance. And in that crowded instant, with sunset painting the western cemetery in fire and indigo, you sense the world's story about ancient Egypt shifting under your feet. The grid is no longer just topsoil and the marks of old tombs. It is a canvas for lost architects whose signatures you have only begun to decipher. Somewhere close by, a canvas tent flaps open, scattered with maps and gleaming scan printouts, beckoning you for a closer look. Whatever awaits inside, the L-shaped mystery and its spiral descent have thrown down the gauntlet. Synthesis tent, late afternoon, as you hover over a patchwork litter of maps and fresh radar scan printouts. Just you, a cluster of computers, and the hum of electric anticipation. Grit clings to your forearms. The tent air hangs stifling and still, save for the steady beep of your laptop, reminding you the last scan batch finished rendering. Here, at the edge of the known and utterly unknown, you're in the exact place every story arc dreams of landing, the layer where legend tips into possibility. You lean forward, brushing aside a layer of sand that found its way inside, and your eyes fall on something undeniably hypnotic, circles and lines coiling deep beneath the surface of the Giza plateau. They tug at your mind, refusing to assemble into anything trivial. The radar outputs are demanding more from you. At first, what looked like regular blurs and speckles snaps into acute focus, a spiral, unmistakably engineered, not the work of a drunken groundwater pocket or a forgotten animal burrow. The lines are tight, clean, almost cocky in their geometry. You start tracing with your fingertip, feeling the bumps in the paper, as if the contours themselves might transmit some secret code. It does not escape you that you're drawing the beginnings of a staircase so vast it could pass for the circulatory system of an ancient behemoth. Stair after stair descends, carving its way down and vanishing into even more enigmatic voids. A cold ripple of delight rolls up your spine. You have never seen a blueprint like this, and you suspect no one living has either. You swivel and call for Malik, the field lead, whose knack for skepticism outpaces any computer algorithm. After days hunched over data, Malik has become your barometer of reality. He squints at the prints and shakes his head with a little huff. But even he stops short at the sight of those spiral carvings under the Khafre pyramid. The shape is too deliberate, too self-assured. You recognize the look, the same expression people wear when GPS first recalculates a road they thought was solid highway, but then suggests a tunnel beneath it. You and Malik exchange a glance weighted with something close to mischief, and, for a heartbeat, the tent is as charged as a Wall Street trading floor just before a crash. Each scan seems to up the ante. Tunnels spill off the main stair like tributaries, some arcing toward where the Western Cemetery bisects Golden Desert, others vanishing into whirled cavities your instruments can't fully resolve. Each corridor is elegantly oriented, not haphazard. You wonder aloud if the Egyptians of 2500 BC had blueprints that would put modern architects to shame. Here comes the first jolt. The system you're piecing together isn't just a snippet of an old tomb. It appears to outline something far larger, possibly an immense engineered network, a hypothesized subterranean city, hidden all along under your footsteps. Malik skeptically points to an anomaly and reminds you of those labyrinthine radar blobs that first tricked explorers in the Valley of the Kings 30 years ago. Back then, half the world's archaeologists swore they'd uncovered a secret world, only to find natural limestone pockets instead. Don't get carried away, he warns, grinning, but his eyes linger too long on the printout. That's when you catch a flicker in his voice, the kind you hear when someone considers the real possibility of being wrong in a delightfully historic way. The tent grows a shade cooler as you open the next scan window. Suddenly, you're staring at evidence of spiral stairs that plunge much deeper than any passageways catalogued in the official Giza records. The downward sweep of these coils, tight as the ramps in any multi-story parking garage, forces you to question every school textbook you ever trusted. They are functional, engineered by design, not luck. Something about their arc and precision reminds you alarmingly of civil engineering diagrams you last saw projected in a downtown Cairo symposium. Ambient noise slips away. With each scan layered atop the others, the city below assembles gantries, halls, corridors, staircases, a network grander than seems reasonable. The sand above, baking you in midday heat, suddenly feels like the shallow crust of a far more complicated world. For a lingering moment, your own shadow stretches against the tent wall, chest rising and falling as the realization settles. You are quietly trespassing on a magnitude of history that, if verified, might explode through the boundaries of what you thought was possible for an ancient civilization. In the lull, You catch the scent of dust mingling with something unmistakably metallic. Even the local radio in the tent next door falls silent, as if the desert itself is waiting for you to make the next move. The pattern is big, ambitious, architectural. You scribble notes in the margin, your pen skipping over the phrase, engineered domain designed for life, not simply burial. Pattern interrupt. You remember that similar underground anomalies once sent expert panels into frenzied debates, only to be chalked up as airflow channels or quirky geological flukes by the mainstream. News anchors then delighted in lampooning breathless researchers who mistook rock fissures for lost cities. Then again, the world also made jokes about face on Marses until better scans arrived years later, and the laughter turned just a little nervous. With that thought, your anxiety mingles with something sharper. The halls, some up to 10 meters across, are bracketed by a type of symmetry that feels almost confrontational, challenging you to doubt the evidence right in front of you. For a moment, you imagine the laser pointer from last season's TED Talk slicing through this scan, the diagrams flickering above the heads of an audience whose jaws land somewhere near their shoes. Breathe. You sit back, letting the plastic chair groan under your weight. Malik finally runs a hand over his chin and admits, "There's no natural explanation for these spirals, at least none that makes me sleep easy tonight." Whatever caution remains on his face is eroded by curiosity. You nod, feeling the cool undercurrent run through your veins like subterranean air, a city waiting to be walked, not merely scanned. You stack the LiDAR maps into a makeshift 3D puzzle, snapping edges together. Each joined segment expands the fantasy, you standing at the edge of a vast hall, where echoes reverberate like a distant drum, sand falling through an opening, flashlight flickering over stone so finely cut that it could pass muster in any Gotham megastructure. The heat presses in from above, but the promise of what's below tugs you forward. A new breath. You and Malik stare at each other, understanding that if these scans hold up, the entire narrative of the Egyptian Old Kingdom will teeter. Across the world, in remote archives and quiet offices, 100 skeptical experts will do double takes. Already, the preliminary reports have triggered cautious admissions from researchers who never once considered stepping out on such a limb. This may demand rewriting a portion of ancient history, if you can prove what you see. Sand grits in your teeth as you muse on one final image. The city's halls extend, perhaps even connect with other rumored tunnels beneath adjacent monuments. If true, this would link to global mysteries. The stone-lined crawl spaces beneath Peru's Sacsayhuaman, the lost catacombs beneath Mycenae, even the fabled concealed world under Teotihuacan's Pyramid of the Sun. Every such theory, dismissed as wild speculation, suddenly earns a little more oxygen. For now you can only guess what stories the city beneath Giza still guards. But for the first time, the echoes you're hearing, each distant hollow tap of imagined footsteps through stone, might belong not to rumor or wishful thinking, but to the resonance of something true. You gather the syntheses, resolved to share them with the night owl contingent at the mess tent. Outside, twilight sharpens the shadows thrown by the plateau's edge. The stakes are concrete. If these scans are right, you and Malik stand at the mouth of a city that could rewrite the world's most ancient story. For now, you step out into the cooling dusk, every grain of sand beneath your boots vibrating with the possibility that history's real iceberg lies directly underfoot. Camp mess tent, dusk painting, the canvas walls peach and indigo. Here, you sit perched atop a rickety folding chair, elbows on the checkered plastic tablecloth, boots powdered with the Giza sand. The spicy aroma of cumin rice clings to the air. The echoes of laughter from the dig team outside fade as the news settles, heavy and peculiar, between bites. You eye the cold tea in front of you, but all you can taste is the metallic tang of anticipation. Every screen within reach, from battered laptop to smudged phone, glows with wild headlines: underground city, engineered tunnels, paradigm-shattering radar results. The world is, for a moment, more interested in this patch of Egyptian ground than in the World Cup. Engineered domain designed for life, not simply burial. You lean back, the canvas creaking, and the atmosphere feels charged, not unlike moments in the late 1940s when news leaked about strange scrolls emerging from the Dead Sea caves. Mainstream scholars at first squinted at that idea, brushing it aside as a curiosity, even a possible forgery. No one could imagine that those scraps of parchment would rewrite chapters of ancient history, and yet, eventually, they did. For everyone huddled in this tent now, the lesson is glaringly fresh. Sometimes the real treasures are shrugged off at first glance. Outside, the afterglow of the day curls over the plateau, and you find yourself looking at the pyramid you thought you knew. Centuries of sun have burnished the Khafre monument into near myth. Imagine standing among laborers and architects who witnessed the first stone placed, the final cap set. Perhaps, you think, they too glanced up and saw more than a tomb. Maybe, for them, this was only the summit of something vaster, an entire world, meticulously ordered and sealed from the chaos above. Your fingers trace the lines of a radar printout, still dusty from the morning scramble. On it, a constellation of shapes sprawls in impossible geometry, overlaid spirals twisting far below where conventional tours ever tread. The data isn't just dots, it hints at intention. Spiral formations in random bedrock make no sense. Nature dithers. But here the angles are too sharp, the curves too measured. At the map's edge, additional whispers emerge in faint ink. Shivers run down your spine as you make out what could be ancient water channels, or the ghost of an underground passageway snaking toward the western cemetery. Features that shouldn't be there if folklore told the whole truth. Someone calls out from the generator by the tent door. Claudia, your closest ally on this dig, holds up her phone, eyebrows arched. The headlines are multiplying like desert locusts. Some are already screaming hoax, she grins, half mocking, half worried. Others think it's the end of Egyptology as we know it. The last time discoveries like this hit the mainstream, she reminds you, people laughed at the idea that Troy still slumbered beneath Turkish dust. Then Heinrich Schliemann stumbled onto its ruins and upended centuries of armchair certainty. You nod, thoughts drifting to how many discoveries once dismissed as anomalies are now sprinkled throughout history textbooks. Not that doubt fades easily. Outside experts keep popping onto every news channel to caution the public. Similar radar signals sometimes reveal only natural underground pockets, not lost cities. The caution tape bordering the mess tent is almost superstitious at this hour, as though fearful some ghostly priest will materialize and scold you for asking forbidden questions. The air feels thick, laced with skepticism and hope in equal measure. Still, fragments of the radar story linger in your mind, sticking like sand in your boots. Among the grid of perfect lines, the suggestion of water management looms, echoing the astonishing ingenuity for which ancient Egyptians were so often overlooked. Just ask any guide on the Giza plateau, and they'll regale you with tales of hidden aqueducts and cleverly designed drainage undreamed of by later empires. Here, on these sheets, it's as if the city planners beneath the pyramid turned the limestone bedrock into a kind of inverted Nile delta, just waiting for someone with the right tools and stubbornness to see it. A sudden hush grips the tent. Even the crackling lantern seems to listen as you and Claudia review the radar overlays frame by frame. Is that a corridor bending away at an unnatural right angle? Your heart catches. The possibility is intoxicating. You feel as if you are peering into the blueprints of an extinct civilization, one that engineered not only above ground, but deep within the shadows, where the sand could never swallow their handiwork. Every so often, you press the cool, sweat-soaked bandana to your face, fighting off the oppressive, sticky heat. Then, in the still moment after each small reveal, you register a faint rush of air stirring beneath the tent flaps. Down below the stone, perhaps, such currents once spiraled through enormous, echoing tunnels. You imagine your footsteps echoing through those mystery-shrouded passageways, flashlight flickering off walls, cut so precise you could run your hand along them, and feel not the roughness of random rock, but the signature of ancient intention. You realize, Claudia intones, if what we found really is an engineered complex, the textbooks are toast. There is a thrill in her voice, fragile and electric. More than a few researchers online have now chimed in, perhaps reluctant, but unable to suppress the edge of awe, privately admitting that if these scans prove accurate, well, everything changes. This would not just be one more tweak to the accepted story of Egypt. It would mean rewriting the very boundaries of what people once believed humans could achieve thousands of years ago. But the room is still divided. The skepticism, too, is burnished by memory. Faded recollections surface, timelines where radical finds got whittled down by careful testing or spun into tales of natural flukes. You note how the same expert who once wrote off Troy's golden mask is wheeled out on television, warning viewers not to trade good science for ghost stories. Another twist comes quietly. As you glance at a fresh radar overlay, rendered in teeth-rattling monochrome, you spot something that forces the breath from your chest. An unmistakable spiral, linking what might be two central chambers, appears on the scan. Until last month, most archaeologists would have bet their grants it was a scanning artifact, some tremor or fault in the bedrock. Tonight, though, the evidence begins to pile up, stubborn as the delta reads. This spiral aligns precisely with recorded tales about the labyrinthine pathways Giza's workers supposedly use for ceremonial processions or secret maintenance. The edge of your world shifts. Just for a heartbeat, doubt flickers. The reality is that technology itself has often been maligned, dismissed as unreliable, even dangerous, right up until the moment when smoke-stained photographs or hand-dug trenches finally proved it right. It happened with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It happened with aerial scans uncovering Maya pyramids where cows once grazed. Maybe, just maybe, it is happening again, right beneath your battered boots. You wipe the sweat from your brow and listen. The chorus of expert doubt gives way for a fleeting instant to a deeper hum, possibility. Here, under the mess tent string lights and the looming gaze of the pyramid, your mind wanders. What would it mean, truly, to walk in the shadowed city beneath Egypt's crown? To discover water-carved passages, spiral ramparts, and intentional design, where others saw only rumor or naturally weathered stone. You take another slow breath, feeling the press of history against your back. The world outside remains tangled in debate, but here, clarity is growing. The story of Giza is mutating in real time. Technology, ridicule, vindication, each is layered atop the other, forming a foundation just as sturdy as the bedrock itself. The shift is unmistakable. Tonight, you glimpse the truth that every generation nearly misses. The biggest secrets rarely come announced. More often, they sit in plain sight, embossed right onto the world's great mysteries, waiting only for one bold step into the unknown. A fresh breeze rustles the tent, and somewhere close by, a flashlight flickers toward the newly revealed staircase that plunges into the earth. You slide your chair back, heart pumping, ready to begin the journey downward. The edge of the new staircase, Giza Plateau, late morning. You stand at the brink, the hard stone under your boots, as real as the nervous twist in your stomach. The ancient air here is thicker, laced with fine, gritty sand that clings to your skin. Sweat beads at your brow, only to be cooled by a faint rush of subterranean air that seeps from the spiral descending before you. The pitch dark below is as much a threshold as a challenge, a boundary between the world you thought you knew and the one that rumbles beneath it, waiting to be rewritten. Even now, a single step downward means your heartbeat kicks up a gear. Faint echoes bounce up the shaft, punctuated by the scuff of boots on alien geometry. This doesn't seem like a random cavern dug by water or time. The walls, revealed in pale flashlight arcs, bear the intentional marks of chisel and polish. Angular blocks slop together with improbable neatness, some edges sharp enough to slice a glove. Your light flicks across a set of spiral grooves, too regular, too deliberate to be blamed on nature's lazy brush. Somewhere behind you, a radio cracks out a message. "Keep in contact." You reply, short and low, voice clipped by the tension in your jaw. With each spiral, the air cools, almost fresh, filtered through untold decades of silence. It's a relief from the oppressive heat up on the surface, where heat ripples like river water across the plateau. But this comfort only underscores the strangeness. What civilization could engineer such depth, such control over climate and structure? Bodies of trusted colleagues line the upper steps, each face lit with a different mixture of awe and disbelief. Some seem to brace themselves with science, clutching ground-penetrating radar logs, as if faith could be found in solid-state memory. A sudden sharp turn in the staircase. The descent levels out into a broad antechamber. Here, your foot brushes against smooth tiles dusted in centuries-old sand. Light picks out perfectly symmetrical alcoves cut into each wall, the geometry unbroken by the ravage of time. Every alcove mirrors its twin, as if the stones themselves were dictated by some grand latticework director. You pause, heart keeping time with the faint drip of condensation from an unseen ceiling. Something about this place suggests more than tomb architecture. This is function, perhaps a meeting place, or, absurdly, a traffic circle for ancient travelers. The stakes tingle up your spine. If some long-vanished culture built all this, the textbooks left upstairs are fossils at best. With the brush of your glove, a glyph comes into relief, not animal, not script, but a series of short, deep grooves. 5, then 6, then 5 again. It could be nothing. And yet, your mind immediately races to all the dismissed discoveries that scientists used to laugh out of polite conversation. Remember when the idea of Viking settlements in North America was treated as fringe? Now, even grade schoolers parrot that fact on playgrounds. Maybe this will be the next cold case to combust into consensus once you discover what lies ahead. You move forward, the others close behind. The echo changes with every step. Tunnels form arterial branches, yawning off into corridors as black as fresh ink. The ground vibrates faintly, perhaps a Cairo subway far above, or something less ordinary. To your left, a shaft plunges downward. The walls here are too polished, too true for random chance. You run your fingers along a dime-thin seam. It runs the length of the corridor, then vanishes around a curve. This is engineered, not accidental. A maze where every right angle feels like a dare. You recall the headlines from last spring, when a Japanese team published those radar scans west of the plateau. Their instruments caught a stark, L-shaped anomaly beneath the surface near what used to be dismissed as a debris field. 2 months of digging were interpreted as suggesting masonry, possibly massive and clean-cut, though debate continues. Their field notes were a mix of excitement and calculation. Some archaeologists dismissed the L as just an odd formation. Others are still arguing on late-night cable shows, voices pitched precisely between skepticism and barely contained glee. Here, at this intersection of spiral stair and L-shaped passage, you stop for air, a breather while your mind catches up. Down here, history fights back against its own erasure. What you're seeing doesn't match any standard tomb architecture. You catch fragments of distant voices, filtered through radio static. On the other side of your earpiece, a researcher mutters that these may be natural rock pockets, shaped by millennia of Nile seepage. Another quietly speculates, off-mic, almost to herself, that only deliberate engineering can create this kind of mirrored chamber symmetry in the complete absence of surface cracks. A corridor leads away to your right, and there, lined up as though awaiting some ancient roll call, rows of stone benches flank a recessed cistern. You crouch, angling your light over the edge. Below, instead of dust, you find the black glaze of water, pooled and motionless. Its surface is so unbroken that your reflection stares back like a shadowed twin. The ancient Egyptians, you recall, were maestros of water management, training the Nile, irrigating desert earth, even channeling floodwaters into hidden chambers to protect their treasures. Standing here, you feel the ghost of that ingenuity pressed into every surface. The reverberating silence is broken by a distant creak, a rock settling or something less geological. The group exchange glances. You edge forward. With every move, the walls seem to close in, yet the floor plan grows even more complex. Patterns emerge. The spiral motif repeats in floor tiles and ceiling etchings, tracing paths that curve and reconnect in mathematical precision. It feels less like a tomb and more like a riddle cast in limestone, scaled up to city-size proportions. That's the twist right here, plainly. Some researchers are cautiously admitting what once would have cost them tenure. In confidential interviews, they admit that if this vast network is verified as crafted by human hands and not a freak quirk of geology, then every timeline of Egyptian civilization has to be pushed back. Not just the era of the pharaohs, but the baseline of what's considered possible at all. That is a gravity you can feel, rumbling beneath your boots. You take a moment and inhale, tasting the mineral tang of underground air. Every so often, your light picks up flecks of mica embedded in the stone, sparkling back. Blink and you'll miss it, signals. Above ground, the sun pounds the sand. Down here, the rules feel reversed, as if the labyrinth below Giza has been waiting until now to show its secrets. The realization settles in like a weight. With each flick of your flashlight, every hidden chamber exposed, history is buckling under the strain of newfound complexity. Another step, another echo. Just beyond the final arch of this level, the tunnel mouth opens into deeper darkness, promising more turns, more revelations, more arguments above ground. Here at the threshold, you find yourself bracing for whatever comes next. You realize, all at once, that every heartbeat and every echo in these corridors belongs to a story not yet fully told. All of Giza, and the story of humanity itself, seems poised at the brink of a spiral that descends further, and you are right at the center, heading into the unknown. Giza Plateau, Egypt. Present day. You stand at the gaping entrance of a newly exposed corridor, flashlight trembling in your hand. Your breathing echoes louder than your footsteps in the ancient vaults below the surface, beneath the familiar bulk of the Khafre pyramid. The silence is deep, broken only by the scraping of your boots on stone meticulously cut, thousands of years ago, by hands or tools that left no written record, only questions. You pull your scarf tighter as the temperature drops steeply, cold air funneling out of shadowed depths to slap your cheeks. Gone is the stifling heat of the Egyptian sun, replaced by subterranean chill and a faint, earthy tang. The grainy floors crunch beneath your feet, a reminder that above your head lies layers of sand, and beyond that, the weight of both history and expectation. Others said nothing lay beneath but rumor and grubble. Now you are here, where so few have stood, guided only by the erratic readout of radar scans capable of seeing through rock, the way airport security sees through luggage. Somewhere behind, you remember the dismissive wave of a graying archaeologist. Just echoes, just stone, just the same old Giza dirt. Many mainstream archaeologists argued that the spiral patterns and radar readings could reflect natural rock formations or radar equipment errors. To them, a glitch explained everything. The same skepticism that once labeled the Dead Sea Scrolls a hoax or dismissed Viking presence in North America as someone's wishful thinking. You heard their voices. Surely this can't be a city. Surely this is just nature playing tricks with geology and gadgetry. And yet, you are not looking at a pile of rocks. You are looking at doors. Actual, physical points in the darkness where the stone yields to space, where air moves differently, where a flashlight beam dies mid-air as though sucked into invisible wells. At each threshold, your heart tries to drum its way out of your chest. You step into the first chamber. The echo of your boot marks the revelation. This space is not accidental. The walls bear striations that run perfectly parallel, like grooves machine-cut into marble countertops. Tiny glittering specks in the granite catch your light, sparkling, as if mocking every email chain that ever dismissed these tunnels as a trick of the scanner. And then, there, against the left wall, a series of shallow indentations arranges itself in a looping spiral, as neat as the roll of a coil in a modern parking garage ramp. This doesn't look like chaos. It seems like design, with intent guided by someone who thought 3 moves ahead of the sand. You stop, running a hand along the curve. Ground-up sand clings to your fingertips. The spiral is deeper than you first guessed, large enough to hint at steps worn smooth. Spiral staircases, descending deeper underground, could suggest a level of planning and skill the textbooks barely dared imagine if confirmed. Some will say, it is just erosion. Here, now, in the cold hush, you feel it may be the fingerprint of a mind that mapped spaces most people only dream of. The implication lands with a jolt. Whoever engineered this, they thought vertically as well as horizontally. They built down, not just out. A quick glance at your partner's map, a battered paper overlay smeared with sweat and hope, shows more markers. The next turning is tighter, the passageways narrower. The flashlight beam flickers over mosaic-like debris, shards of polished stone, a glinting corner of what might have been a stair rail, or perhaps just a mathematical flourish centuries ahead of its era. It's not just the walls or floors that throw you. Every 20 paces, a strange L-shaped alcove emerges, as if you have wandered into an architectural manifesto set down in rock and dust. You recall that a Japanese research team once reported a mysterious L-shaped anomaly near the Western Cemetery at Giza. It went into the footnotes back then. Here, it's a punchline that has finally come due. If this is the same pattern, then the engineers left their blueprint not just above ground, in the sun and stone pyramids, but also deep underground, like a backup hard drive for the soul of a civilization. You pause, letting the oppressive silence wrap itself around you. Somewhere in the layers above, tourists wander, flattening pyramidal sand with Reebok soles, oblivious to the parallel universe yawning below their feet. This realization brings a sharp contrast. On the surface, everything appears mapped, named, known. Down here, every sideways glance reveals evidence that the story of Egypt isn't finished. It's rewriting itself beneath your boots, one echo at a time. You flick your light back toward where you came, only now noticing flecks of paint in a seam along the ceiling. Old? Ancient? For a second, time blurs. Were these colors laid for function, for art, or as codes for navigating a labyrinth? The suspense thickens. You are not the first to wonder, but you might be the first to stand here and sense these choices as the living breath of a lost intent. And this is just one corridor. The radar scans project a city's worth of unknowns. Intersecting tunnels, abrupt vertical shafts, blocked passages, voids the size of swimming pools. Yet, the skeptics return, circling like office drones, muttering about misconfigured printers on a Monday. Mainstream experts reminded the public that similar radar anomalies in the past had natural explanations after study. Every so often, you find yourself half convinced by their caution, until another turn, another echo, blows the cover off their certainty. Pattern interrupt. You are moving through a new stretch where the tunnel floor suddenly changes texture, the sand replaced by compacted, grooved limestone. Streaks on the wall mark a sudden change in humidity and age. You kneel, feeling a faint breeze on your cheek. Rolling in from depths you can't yet see, the temperature drops again. This tunnel has not been flooded by Nile waters, nor choked by shifting desert. Something kept it open. Catch your breath. This isn't just leftovers of geology. This could be evidence of centuries-old preservation, whether for safe passage, rituals, or some secret still buried in dust-choked rooms ahead. It's at this juncture you realize nothing you learned in school prepared you for this. The Egyptian sun above once seemed eternal. Here, in the cold, dark, eternity has a different flavor. It is the tang of stone dust on your teeth, the endless call and response of your own steps echoing into the unknown. As you move deeper, the corridor warps and suddenly opens into a chamber whose ceiling vaults out of reach. Your hand sweeps a halo of light along the rim, revealing narrowing stepwells spiraling deeper, vanishing into a dense black that swallows electric beams whole. Your sense of up and down are unmoored. If not for the cool breeze pulling at your face, you might think gravity itself was turned as an afterthought, reworked by ancient design. Your partner whispers, voice reverberating. If this is engineered, it's one of the most radical shifts in our understanding of Egypt's builders. Inside, you know it's true, and the implications press at your ribcage from within. If a city is here, planned with such artistry, what else have we overlooked beneath our feet, beneath the surface of every certainty? Here is the compass line. The underground city beneath the Giza plateau remains a hypothesis. For now, it is a living riddle. Each chamber, a direct challenge to history you thought was settled. Above, Giza's sandy plains shimmer beneath the noon sun, humming with tourists and camels, selfie sticks and bottled water vendors. Below, with each footstep, you are part of a story, vying to be heard for the first time. The line between present and ancient twists, tighter with every stair, every shadowed alcove. And even though your light only shows the nearest layer, you sense the magnificent depth hidden within these walls, the labor, the ambition, the legacy. This labyrinth was both secret and monument. This breath of cool air is history welcoming you, not as a spectator, but as a curator of its rediscovery. The meaning is inescapable. What you have found here beneath the stones of Giza doesn't merely whisper doubt at old narratives. It shouts for a rewrite. The city may not be a myth, nor just a rumor, nor necessarily a radar mirage. You feel as if you are walking its avenues, tracing spiral paths where only the brave or the foolish dared search. The echoes in the corridor are not just sound. They are a reminder that for all we have mapped and explained, the world still hides cathedrals of mystery underground. You pause once more, gazing into the endless darkness. You breathe in the ancient cool. If everything you know can change in a single corridor, imagine what waits in the chambers beyond. For now, here, torchlight flickering off perfect stone, dust in your lungs, pulse echoing through vanished ages, you have met history not as a dry archive, but as a living presence, stubbornly, gloriously real. If real, the city beneath Giza awaits verification. What comes next is up to those who dare step inside.